Good morning to most of America and good just afternoon on the East Coast. This is Lars Leicht from the SOMM Journal. Very pleased to be here to be presenting our Geographical Digest educational webinar series. This is from the SOMM Journal in collaboration with SOMMCon and our friends at National Geographic and the new Sotheby's Wine Encyclopedia. Great book. If you don't have it, I recommend you find it. And if you can't find it and you're really desperate for it or really eager for it, and you like a little bit of a challenge, I'm going to put an offer out there right away and tell you that the first 5 essays that come into short essays telling us what you got out of today's webinar, and so it has to be after the webinar is finished, tell us roughly what you got out of today's webinar and how that will help you in your service on the floor or of your wine shop or your fine restaurant. So the first 5 essays that come in will send you a copy of the new Sotheby's Wine Encyclopedia. Fantastic resource. I was just reading on page, where is it? Page 568 about North America and vines being planted here by the missionaries in the 1500s. A lot of information that helped me prepare for today. We're going to have a great webinar, and I'd like to start off by introducing Meredith May, our publisher and editor-in-chief, to get us kicked off and started. Good morning, Meredith.
Good morning. Thank you, Lars. I'm so excited. This is the second of our monthly series in partnership with National Geographic and SOMMCon, our hosts today and throughout the series every month. We've got some great guests, and I guess because of the lockdown, we're all hopefully experiencing domestic bliss, but on a Venus scale, we're going to have a great webinar today.
Absolutely. This is something neat, something that I think our forefathers predicted or hoped for anyway. Certainly Thomas Jefferson did, talking about the ability, this confidence that America could produce as great of a variety of wines as the old world could. He said they certainly might not be better, but they would be different. And that's what we have. Vive la différence, as they say in the old world. And we're gonna get it started right away because we've got a lot of wonderful presenters and great wines to share with you today. So I'm going to ask batter up first from Chalk Hill is Sarah Quider, who is the VP of winemaking at Foley Family Wines in Sonoma. Sarah's got quite a responsibility overseeing the whole portfolio and dealing with every specific winemaker. And yet at the same time, Sarah, I know you're very focused on assuring individual identity, style, and personality for each of the wines that are made from each estate. And I know you like wines that have complexity, seamlessness, balance, and or balance between richness and delicacy. So tell us a little bit how you deliver that with this iconic Chalk Hill Estate Chardonnay.
Okay. I am going to start sharing my screen and start. So give me just a sec. There we go. So yeah, thank you, Lars, for the introduction. I am Sarah Quider. I'm the VP of winemaking for Foley Family Wines. And you know, it's been a joy to be here. I cannot wait to talk to you about the Chalk Hill AVA, as well as the beautiful Chardonnays that we make at Chalk Hill Estate Winery. So I'll just start. We are in Sonoma County, and Sonoma County AVA has very broad, diverse appellations, sub-appellations. In fact, there's 18 distinct sub-AVAs within Sonoma County, and you have the beautiful Pacific Ocean along the coast. You have the Russian River that flows right through Sonoma County. But there's such diversity in Sonoma County. You have the Gold-Ridge soils in Russian River Valley. You have the decomposed rhyolite soils in Knights Valley and Alexander Valley, but you also have beautiful Chalk Hill appellation with the volcanic rock. So I'll go into that in just a minute. But it's such a beautiful, diverse Sonoma County appellation that is a beautiful place to make wonderful wines throughout. I think we have the cool fog that comes in at night and cools down the grapes, but we also have beautiful, warm, sunny days that warm things up and ripen to ultimate ripeness. So Chalk Hill AVA, where we are located, we are actually in the Russian River Valley. So Russian River Valley has two sub-AVAs. It's Green Valley and Chalk Hill. But we are in the northern end of Russian River Valley. It's a little bit warmer. So we're in between the cooler Russian River, but not as warm as the Alexander Valley and the Knights Valley location. So it's kind of like an in-between of the climate. The size of the AVA in Chalk Hill is only 1,400 acres. So it's a pretty small little sub-AVA, but what makes it so unique is the soil. And it is absolutely stunning, the soil that we have there. And that is what Fred Firth, which is the original owner at Chalk Hill Winery, he lobbied and petitioned to get the AVA established in 1983. So he saw the soil, the topography, the climate, and he petitioned to get a sub-AVA, and we did it. So the original owner of Chalk Hill Winery. So a little bit about the history of what he did was he established the winery in 1972. He was actually flying his plane over the area, saw the beautiful rolling hills of the area, looked at the soil, looked at the climate, and he bought this ranch. It was 1,300 acres within the area. And he focused on trying to make the best decisions. He looked at the soil, he did clonal researches, he did the 100% sustainable biodiversity, everything he could to make the most exquisite Chardonnay. And I'll get into the clonal research that he did, but really, his focus was to make the best Chardonnay. And he had the winery and he sold it to Bill Foley in 2010. And Bill and Carol and Courtney Foley love the Chardonnay. In fact, I think Bill has it every night. And he just loves, and they will continue on with the tradition of what Fred Firth started. The details of the ranch and the estate property in itself is 1,300 acres. It has a winery, a hospitality center. It's got a culinary garden that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. We're one of the original culinary farm to table culinary wine experiences, but there's swimming, there's fishing ponds. The biodiversity in this estate is absolutely beautiful and stunning. I could go on to our vineyards. Our vineyards within the property, there is 382 vineyard sites or vineyard blocks within the estate. And it's the elevation, like I was saying, it's got beautiful rolling hills. The lowest point is 275 feet in elevation. The highest is 650. It really isn't that high or too low. It's just these beautiful rolling hills. It's 100% sustainably farmed, and it has 11 different varietals on the property. The majority of the varietal is Chardonnay, and I think Chardonnay is the love and the passion of Chalk Hill. We're known for it, and we actually have 22 different Chardonnay clones on the site on the vineyard. So what makes Chalk Hill AVA so unique is the soil, and it comes down to this beautiful, it's not chalk. Everybody thinks Chalk Hill, it's chalk. It's not chalk at all. It's actually a volcanic rock and ash that came from Mount St. Helena in Napa Valley. And we actually have 21 different soil types, but it's all a mixture of this volcanic ash and rock that came over. And what this soil does to our wines is it really makes our wines have this brightness and this beautiful minerality that showcases and shines. And I think that's what is so great about our Chardonnay and the AVA. So one of the things that Fred Firth did when he started, he did this clonal research, trying to find the best clone of Chardonnay for the soil and the area. And so he spent 40 years propagating and grafting and doing so much work with UC Davis and the Plant Foundation Services. It took 15 years, but actually UC Davis has a Chalk Hill Chardonnay clone. And it's clone 97, and it's a clone of Chardonnay that's absolutely a hens and chicks type of clone. So it's got little berries, big berries, medium berries. And what it does is it has a beautiful, unique, every berry tastes different. So there's a complexity that is inherent in that cluster. And so when you have all of that, it's absolutely beautiful. So that clone 97 is on the property, but we also have 22 other Chardonnay clones on the ranch that makes our Chardonnay. So what we do with all of this beautiful fruit that we have is we bring it in and we whole cluster press it. We keep every lot separate. We do native fermentation on every single block. And we kind of do this minimalistic winemaking so that we express the vineyard. So 100% malolactic, 100% unfiltered on our wines too. So we try to have the wine express itself, is what I think is the beauty of the attention to detail of what we're trying to establish in the wines. So I work alongside with Daryl Holbrook. He's been there 26 years. He's our winemaker, and there's something about Daryl. He's calm, he's knowledgeable, he's passionate. His love for the Chalk Hill wines, I just admire. It's when you have that kind of passion, it's wonderful to work with and taste with and blend with. It's an absolute joy. What we have today and what we're showcasing is the 2017 Estate Chardonnay, 100% estate grown fruit. But one of the things, like I was saying, it's unfiltered, native fermentation, malolactic, but we do put a little bit of oak, 45% roughly, of Francois Frere Burgundy in barrels. And we use different types of grains and different toasting to enhance the fruit. But what I really get in the wine is more lychee and Meyer lemon and Asian pear and mangoes, but also in the palate, you have that minerality and the freshness and the brightness in the wine. So I hope you get to try it. We do also have other wines. This is our estate Chardonnay, but we have a Russian River Valley Chardonnay as well as a Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. We thank the tasting panel and all the wonderful write-ups that we get on our Chardonnays, because it is always a beautiful aspect to actually have acknowledgement of all our love and passion and hard work. And so thank you, Meredith, for the wonderful write-ups, and appreciate, and I hope that you get to try and come out to the winery when things settle down. Come out, taste the wines, do the culinary garden, and have an experience at Chalk Hill Winery. And that's all I've got. How'd I do with time?
And that's brilliant. You're right on, precise. I can tell you've run Ironman marathons. So,
I have.
Thank you, Sarah. The wine is beautiful. I know that. I know that. I know your guilty pleasures are Ironmans and gin. So
yes,
the wine
I do
is
like
absolutely
gin.
beautiful. I'm going to ask you to take your screen down.
Okay.
I'm curious what is planted all around in that culinary garden, because I definitely get on the finish of the Chardonnay, I get definitely some nice herbal notes, a little bit of like a wild sage, even some rosemary, just very subtle that add to the earthiness of the wine and the minerality.
You know, the culinary garden has everything that you have for a vegetable garden. I think the area is just a beautiful site. On the wine, though, I would think that could be the type of oak or the nuances of, we do, one of the things that we put in the wine is we do add back lees, and we try to give more weight and minerality from the lees as well. So.
Excellent. Yeah. I just made a nonsensical connection, but it we talked about the herbs in the culinary garden. Obviously has nothing to do with the vineyards, but it certainly complements the wine very nicely. So fantastic. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So next up, we're going to go to the Pacific Northwest. We're going to go up to Willamette and specifically to the Yamhill Carlton AVA. and speak with a winemaker who comes to us from France. Guillaume Large was born in Pouilly-Fuissé. He studied law, but then finally saw the light and went back to his passion, as his grandfather was a grower. And he's a veteran of Louis Jadot, worked under Jacques Lardier. And Jacques tapped him when they had this idea for the very first time since Louis Jadot's founding in 1859 to do something outside, not only outside Burgundy, but outside of France, outside of Europe, and start this wonderful project called Resonance Vineyard. So Guillaume, please tell us about the terroir there, the differences between Burgundy and Oregon, and what you're trying to achieve in this New World venture.
Yes, with pleasure. So good morning, good afternoon, bonjour. Voilà, let me start the presentation. So Resonance, alors, I will speak with a French accent, but it's not fake. This is the truth. So I am the winemaker of Resonance. I moved from Burgundy, a few years ago. And voilà, as Lars told you, Resonance is the first project of the Maison Louis Jadot outside of Burgundy from 1859. Jadot, Burgundy only, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but this is the story of a team, of a crew, Pierre-Henri Gaget, his son Thibault, and Jacques Lardier, the head winemaker of Jadot during 42 vintages, working with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. The idea, Jacques was officially retired of his position of head winemaker at Jadot at the end of 2012 and available in 2013, to visit the Willamette Valley. Willamette Valley makes sense for Jadot. For us, as you can see on the map, this is the same latitude, the 45th parallel. A well-known region for Pinot Noir as well, Willamette, but we didn't know. We didn't know, and we had the idea to discover a little bit this region. You can see the map of the Willamette Valley. It's big, it's huge. From north to south, this is the same distance than the whole Burgundy, from Chablis to Mâcon to the Beaujolais as well. So big potential. Still a young wine region, with the northern part, with the sub-AVAs, like Hamilton where we are, but Dundee Hills, Chelem Mountain, voilà. So beautiful location. And Jacques, in 2013, visited Resonance Vineyard, a beautiful vineyard of Pinot Noir, 20 acres, planted from the beginning of the 80s, with the beautiful tree lines. And Jacques felt an energy at the feeling of a great location, a great terroir, a somewhereness. And that was the seed really of our project outside of Burgundy, with the brand Resonance. Very important for us. So 1859, the foundation of Jadot, the same year, the foundation of the state of Oregon. So a good sign, 2013, the first vineyard, Resonance Vineyard. And then we continue to grow up, with in 2018, the inauguration of our new winery. And last year, 19, the opening of our tasting room on the same property in Carlton, so in Hamilton AVA. Voilà. The winery, very important for us. The technical center, located at the heart of our property, of 350 acres, near to Resonance Vineyard. The tool to realize the potential of the terroir, of the somewhereness of the location, using exactly the same method, the same equipment than in Burgundy, with the aging in barrel, very important for us. And another facility, on the property, the tasting room, important for us, especially because in Burgundy, we don't use a lot the tasting room. You test in the cellar, you don't have the tool to show what you are doing. And that was important for us to do something in connection with the environment, with the beauty of the Willamette Valley, with the big oak trees. So we built something simple, but with the local barn style. Voilà, so open every day. Then of course, we continue to develop our project on the property, so near to Resonance Vineyard, the initial vineyard, planting from 2017 additional Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So now it's about 90 acres, so 90 acres in production, you know, voilà, with the beautiful hillside, with the really the expression of a location, of a terroir. Alors, of course, everything is important for us, the details of the cultivation of the vineyard. You know, we are certified organic on all the property, and the key, of course, the harvest. Working with Jacques Lardière and myself, of course, together. This is very important to share the experience of Jacques, the experience of the Maison Louis Jadot. Again, to do the same than in Burgundy, but to reveal really what is the expression of the Pinot in the valley. Voilà. Alors, Resonance Vineyard, the first wine that we will test, I choose 2017 vintage, very interesting vintage, a late season that give a lot of energy, a lot of freshness to the wine from Resonance Vineyard. So the first vines planted in 1981, everything is ungrafted, very important, only Pinot Noir ungrafted, dry farming, of course, very important as well, on the old marine sedimentary soil of Carlton. So a lot of sediments, you know, that give a richness, that give an expression, that give really a minerality to the wine from the organic vineyard. Voilà, so you can see on the map where we are, exactly really the western side of Yarmil Carlton, at the foot of the Coast Range mountain. The Coast Range, what is very important for us, because it's really like a rain shadow, and that protects really the vineyard. You can see, voilà, this is a picture from the top of the vineyard. You can see the mountain of the Coast Range. Really, often we can see the cloud staying at the top and sliding like that. So giving really a terroir. Voilà. Alors, the wine itself, you know, express really the expression of these ancient marine sediments with a nice expression of the black fruit, you know, of something very spicy but delicate as well, with violet flower touch every year, you know, even if we don't see this violet in the vineyard, but voilà, this is a little bit the magic of the location. And of course the structure. So this is a wine with a certain structure, with the long maceration that we do, distemming the fruits, and then 17 months of aging in barrels in the French oak of Cadus. Voilà, you can see the bottle, but really, voilà, again the energy of Resonance Vineyard, of the ancient sediments of the location. Voilà, and then we'll test a second wine, very different approach. This wine, Resonance Vineyard, a single vineyard, the expression of one location, one terroir. Okay, so there's the beginning of the project. And we decided to do a Willamette Valley blend, working with different locations in the vineyard, in the Willamette Valley. So with the idea to have an expression of the diversity of the Pinot Noir inside the valley. Very, very important for us, because the potential, the geology in the Willamette Valley is very complex. Depending where you are, the marine sediment, but you have volcanic soil, you have the lows as well. So that give really a diversity, a mosaic of terroir. And so this is what we are doing with our blend of Willamette Valley, the expression of the Willamette Valley, with about 50% coming from our organic estate, Yarmil Carlton AVA and Dundee Hills AVA, volcanic soil Dundee Hills, marine sediments with Yarmil Carlton, and another 50% coming from partners, from partnership, you know, like we do at the Maison Louis Jadot, expressing the diversity, again, from Eola Amity, from Chelem Mountain. Voilà, a blend, really a blend, giving all the expression of the fineness, of the elegance of the Pinot Noir here, with a lot of red fruit, black fruit, delicate spices, and a very elegant approach of the Pinot here. Voilà, so this is the two wines that we are testing. 2018 for the Willamette Valley, a beautiful vintage. 2018 really a qualitative vintage. You know, the fruits were beautiful, ripe, giving a good balance, you know, between the alcohol and the acidity. Exactly what we like. Voilà, so another view of the property. So just to resume a little bit what we are doing at Resonance, we use our Burgundian heritage experience, you know, of the Maison Louis Jadot in Burgundy from the 19th century, not to try to make a Burgundian wine in Oregon, but to reveal really the terroir, the somewhereness of the Willamette Valley. Voilà. So thank you very much for your attention. And of course, I think the best option will be when we will be able to visit the Willamette Valley. This is really a beautiful location, a beautiful wine region with, again, a big potential of development of plantation due to this complexity, to this amazing geology. Voilà. So we'll be very happy to host you at Resonance if you have this opportunity. Thank you.
Merci. Thank you, Guillaume. Very well stated. Very well done. One of the things that I really enjoy about these wines is, you know, I'm often called on to translate for people, and I always say that I don't translate, because when you speak one language and you bring it to another language, translation sometimes isn't enough. You have to interpret, which is a little different than translation. And I think that what you've done with Resonance is you very well interpreted all the mission of Louis Jadot. Louis Jadot, you guys are not trying to make Burgundy wines in Oregon, and that shows. But what you are making is what you make in Burgundy, which is a terroir wine. You really and I noticed you said you're using the same equipment. I would imagine that your vineyard practices are pretty much in line as well. So it's always very interesting. The true way to reveal the actual differences in a terroir is to use the same methods and see the different results that they bring out. So exactly. Compliments.
Thank you very much. No,
all right. I'm going to ask you to take your share screen down. And we're going to go to Oregon. And we're going to Oregon. Sorry, I'm a New Yorker. I say Oregon more than I say Oregon. And I need to correct that, Wayne. But Wayne Bailey, who is the winemaker for Youngberg Hill, is here with us. Wayne, your background, you're pretty much tremendous American terroir, having grown up on a farm in Iowa. That's as American as you can get. And I get the idea from what I've read and what I've heard speaking with you is that the farmer is deep within you. You can take the farmer out of the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the farmer. So I see that in your wines, and I'd love to hear more about them, what you're doing there in Willamette Valley. So please.
Well, thank you, Lars. And welcome to sunny Oregon and the Willamette Valley. We're having a beautiful day here today. It was a crisp 39 degrees this morning. It's supposed to get up to 63, so it's a gorgeous October day. I'm going to start by kind of maybe repeating a little bit of what Guillaume mentioned with respect to the Willamette Valley. I'm going to share the screen here and go to the next slide. Okay. And as Lars mentioned, I am the owner and wine grower here at Youngberg Hill and Bailey Family Estates. And let's go to the that one. Yeah. So on the screen on the right, you'll see the McMinnville AVA. And don't we have one of the whole Willamette Valley? This one. Okay. So you'll see the one on the left. I'll start with that one. You'll see that screen shows the area of the Willamette Valley, which is typically called the North Willamette Valley, that goes from Portland, just south of Portland, Chehalem Mountains to Salem. The entire Willamette Valley, as was shown before, goes all the way Eugene, and from Salem to Eugene is typically called the South Willamette. In the North Willamette, you have the 6 primary sub-AVAs, which, as was mentioned before, the Yamhill Carlton is the one in gray to the left. We are in the McMinnville AVA, which is in the blue to the southwest. And the McMinnville AVA then is on the right-hand side, articulated a little broader, and you can see where we're located in regards to that, which is up in the upper left-hand corner. The great thing about the McMinnville AVA, and when we, Nicolette and I, chose to come to the Willamette Valley, obviously the Willamette Valley for us had all the appeal of growing Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in a cool climate. And so the thing that I was looking to do was to hedge my bet a little bit on global warming and global change, and take the Willamette Valley weather to the extreme. And I felt by going higher in altitude and closer to the ocean, we could get part of that. And that's what the McMinnville AVA does. As you see on the left-hand side, we're the farthest west AVA in the North Willamette Valley. And our vineyard is one of the closest to the ocean and one of the highest in altitude. And the combination of those two things, along with sitting up against the foothills of the Coast Range, which provides a little bit of a rain shadow for us, we typically get a little bit more of that cool coastal breeze blowing in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and blowing up the hillsides. So what I love about the McMinnville AVA, again, is that more heavy influence from the coast, those cooler winds, cooler temperatures in the evening, at night, and that rain shadow that we get, that means that we don't get some of the harsher rains that come in from the coast on any time. As was mentioned, all of the soils throughout the Willamette Valley on the hillsides are predominantly marine sediment and volcanic rock. And but there's 2 different kinds of volcanic rock. There's the erosive, which is coming from the volcanoes on top of the landmass. And then there's those that were uplift, which were volcanoes in the ocean that erupted under the water and left volcanic rock. And so you'll see a lot more of that uplifted volcanic rock in the McMinnville AVA. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk specifically about the wines. Let's flip to the next one, the picture of the vineyard. There we go. So this is Youngberg Hill. Nicolette and I ran into this property in 2002. And this was after my experience in Burgundy. And one of the things that I loved about the experience in Burgundy, where I lived for 2 years, was the variation from the valley floor up to the top of a vineyard that was broken up into many different classifications and even ownership. And I love those nuances. And I also became very familiar with Pommard and Baidensville clones. So when we ran into this property in 2002, you'll see the large farmhouse inn that sits atop of the vineyard. Just to the far side of that, which is the Natasha block, named after my oldest daughter, Natasha. Those were old vines of Pommard and Baidensville. In fact, they were planted in 1989. So they're 31 years old. owned root, Pommard, and Wadensville clones, a field mix, which I love that blend as well. The other block that was planted in 1989 is the Jordan block, which you'll be enjoying in just a minute. And that's to the far right, up on the hill. And this picture was taken from a helicopter from the northwest. So it really doesn't give you a good idea of the depth or the steepness of the hill. But if you go from left, which is the Aspen block, my youngest daughter's name, all the way up to the Jordan on the right, there's about a 300-foot incline. So, and this outline, which is kind of traced by the trees all around, that is a total of about 50 acres. And we currently have 23 acres planted. We just planted 3 more acres of Pinot Noir. And the far left is the Chardonnay block, and the one in the would be the southwest corner is the Bailey block of Dijon 777. So about the Jordan, this the wine that was featured was the 2015, which was a warmer year. We had a little bit of sunburn that year with some of the heat extensions, so we used a optical sorter that year, which I learned about in Bordeaux when I was back in France. And it really did a great job. We lost about 10% more yield as a result of it, but it really shows through in the wine. And what I love about the Jordan block is it is on that volcanic rock soil, that uplifted volcanic rock. And that soil is very shallow. The fact that we farm organically, which we started in 2003, and then shifted to biodynamic farming in 2011, and went to no-till farming in 2017, along with the fact that we're non-irrigated, really expresses terroir. And we're not manipulating in response to the farming, but letting nature really show through, not only in the soils and the environment, but also the weather. And that really shows through in this Jordan block, 2015, I believe, because 15 was, while we did have those heat spots, it was overall a cooler year, particularly in September. And so that is very important for the elegance to really show through in this wine. And by the way, Jordan is my middle daughter. So all the blocks are named after my daughters. So the Jordan is, when often asked which is my favorite, I say, well, I can't name a favorite daughter, right? But I do tend to gravitate toward the the Pinot Noir coming from the Jordan, because I believe there's more balance in terms of fruit and savory characteristics, which really appealed. And I think it brings out a little bit more of that Wadensville clone, which I think, again, in that balance of Pommard and Wadensville, having that little additional Wadensville really accentuates this wine. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll bring it back off of the shared screen there. And
Fantastic. Thank you, Wayne. You know, I think I inadvertently said, when I was introducing you, I inadvertently said going to Oregon. I meant staying in Oregon. And it's fascinating, that beautiful bottle. It's fascinating because, you know, you're in the same region, but different subregions. And I love that America is getting more and more into subregions, because even on your own estate, you've got tremendous differences in the terroir. And that's a great lesson that obviously both of our last 2 speakers took away from Burgundy. And it's what the New World is really discovering and getting around to. You know, new is new. It takes time, it takes centuries, and we're getting there. So compliments on a great wine and a beautiful presentation. Thank you, Wayne.
thanks, Lars.
All right, so now we're going to go, not stay, we're going to go to California, and we're going to speak with Mary Edwards winemaker Heidi van der Meyden. Heidi is a California native, studied chemistry, which is always appropriate in winemaking, served in the Peace Corps, which I thought was very cool. worked in the area with a lot of different varieties, but really cut your teeth on Pinot Noir with Mary Edwards, and now became only the second winemaker at Mary Edwards, succeeding Mary Edwards herself. So congratulations on that. And tell us a little bit. We've been talking Pinot Noir, so tell us about Pinot Noir from the Russian River Valley, please.
Yeah, okay, let's go back down south to California and back to the Russian River Valley again. Good morning. Thank you for joining me here in the Russian River Valley. I'm at our winery, which is located at our Coopersmith Vineyard, which is right behind me here. And as Sarah mentioned, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see the map. The Russian River Valley is very close to the Pacific Ocean. All right.
There you go.
There we go. And this and voila, hopefully. All right. So we're very close to the Pacific Ocean. In fact, our westernmost vineyard that we own is only 9 miles as the crow flies from the Pacific Ocean. So the Russian River Valley is a really special place, and we have large diurnal temperature variances caused by the coastal fog and really special gold ridge soils. So these are very well-draining soils, which Pinot Noir vines love to grow in. Our founder, Mary Edwards, realized the potential of the Russian River Valley all the way back in the 1970s. She would come here to visit with her good friend, Joseph Swan, and check out his vineyards and talk with him. She also moved here in the late 70s to a house in the Sebastopol Hills area, which is just around the corner from the Meredith Estate Vineyard, which is the vineyard I'm going to be focusing on today. A little bit about Mary. Mary was one of the pioneers of the California wine industry. She was one of the first graduates from the UC Davis enology program back in 1973. And she realized from what people had told her that a lot of women were kind of pushed into lab positions at that time. And that's where they stayed. We were kind of hidden and we didn't have a lot of opportunities. And Mary was not going to do that. She was encouraged to hold out for a winemaking job. And in 1973, she became the winemaker for Mount Eden Vineyards in the Santa Cruz Mountains. She quickly became known for making exquisite wines, and especially her Pinot Noirs. And it was there at Mount Eden that she actually took a cutting from the Pinot Noir vineyard and brought it to UC Davis and had it heat treated for viruses. She used her own money. I think she said it was $500, which was a lot of money for a winemaker just starting out in the 70s, to have this clone registered, and it's UCD 37. So Mary has her own clone of Pinot here. She moved to the Russian River Valley in the late 70s, as I said, and she had a very successful career making wines and consulting for various wineries in the area. But it wasn't until 1997 that she was able to purchase her own land. She bought a 20-acre vineyard, or excuse me, not vineyard, abandoned apple orchard in the Sebastopol Hills area of the Russian River Valley. And that is our Meredith Estate. So on this map that I have here, you can see the Meredith Estate down kind of in the southwestern area that's highlighted in yellow. That's where she bought it. At the time, Meredith Estate wasn't actually in the Russian River appellation yet. That was still considered kind of extreme, cold Sonoma coast. So it wasn't until later when they expanded the Russian River Valley a little bit, that's when it became part of the Russian River appellation. Sustainable from the start. Mary had some great ideas even back then for doing what was right by the land. She actually hired a company to come and clear out the mature oak trees that were growing among the apple orchard. And she had them, rather than just cut them down, they actually dug around the root ball, dug out the oak trees and carried them off on trucks so they could be reused as landscaping material. So people who wanted mature oak trees in their landscaping could buy those and replant them there. And this, by doing this, she didn't have a bunch of oak roots left in the soil. She didn't have to fumigate the soil, and she could go ahead and plant right away. Let's see. As I mentioned, the Russian River Valley is very close to the coast, and we have this cool fog coming in. Every evening it will come in. It's like what us native Sonoma County people call our natural air conditioning. And that'll actually cool down the atmosphere by 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is amazing for growing Pinot Noir because it really it creates big tannins and dark colors. So it helps enhance our anthocyanins in the grapes. This cool temperature also helps us to naturally hold on to the acidity in the grapes. So rather than getting flabby wines, we have very low pHs in our Pinot Noir. But in the afternoons and the early morning, the fog blows off and you get these beautiful sunny days. And it gets pretty warm here. And that helps us develop the really dark fruit characters that you get in Russian River Pinot. So if you're going to go more west to the cooler Sonoma coast, the wines that you taste from there are going to have more of a red fruit profile. It's cooler out there. You get raspberries and forest floor. But the Russian River, you're really getting warmer climate, dark fruit, dark cherry, and that's what you would find, or what you will find in our Meredith Pinot Noir. Now, both of these pictures that I just showed you, the one with the fog and this one right here, these are of Meredith. This is Mary's first vineyard, and this is my vineyard map that I use. It's not as sexy as some of the other maps you could have, but it's very useful for me. It's a steep hillside that this flat map doesn't show you, but there's about an 8 to 12% grade in the vineyard from block 1, which is of course at the bottom, down to block 12, which is at the top of this map. So we have 12 different blocks that Mary planted, and they're planted to 5 different clones of Pinot Noir. This was the first place where Mary was actually able to plant her own Pinot Noir, her own clone. And at the time, she could only get enough plant material to plant 6 rows. So there's 6 rows at the top of block 1 of the UCD 37 clone of Pinot. It wasn't until much later that she was able to graft over some other vines in block 6 to UC Davis 37. And we've since planted it throughout the Russian River Valley at our other estate vineyards up in the Middle Reach, near Healdsburg, and here at Coopersmith behind me. It's amazing that she was able to pick such a beautiful clone. It tends to perform beautifully throughout the Russian River Valley. We're not the only ones who have planted it. And it gives that chicks and hens look in the cluster. So you have big berries and little tiny berries, lots of berries that only have 1 seed or no seed. So these tiny berries give a really good skin to pulp ratio, which is one of the reasons we have really great color and really good tannins out of our Pinot Noirs. The other clones planted on here are 667, 777, Swan, and 115. The 115 is actually planted at the bottom in blocks 11 and 12. So it's a cooler area there. 115 tends to perform really well there compared to the warmer areas at the top of the hill. And so, so she really planted this with a care and thought about how she was going to make up this vineyard. In addition, she has each block divided into about the right amount that would make 5 tons or produce about 5 tons of Pinot Noir. So when she built the winery in 2006, she had Meredith in mind, and this is a view of our winery. The ones with the red lids are all 5-ton fermenters. So those would each take a separate block of Meredith. So I can really use this vineyard to do experiments. I've done trellising experiments, I've done pruning experiments, and also even like winemaking experiments in there. We're making all these small clones.
I have to give you a 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning? Okay, that's good because I'm winding it down anyway.
Right.
So I don't use all of those blocks in our Meredith, but the best ones end up coming into our Meredith Pinot Noir for making a really extracted, dark, deep. You can see the inky color of the wine. It has beautiful, dark, rich color, rich flavors that you would expect from the Russian River Pinot. And the UC Davis 37 clone really gives it the elegant tannins that you get in the mouthfeel. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Very well done, Heidi. It's, again, fun. We got 2 different versions of Sonoma and the Russian River Valley. Really neat. Love the, this wine has beautiful, as you say, dark fruit, but great savoriness. Very, very lovely. Okay, so now we're going to keep bouncing around and we're going to go back up to the Pacific Northwest and go to Walla Walla, Washington, but with the Californian, with Jack Cakebread, who's the founder and vintner of Mullan Road. We're going to talk about that name and that pronunciation in a second, Jack, right? But Jack is one of the great veterans of Napa winemaking. Cakebread Cellars is one of the historic names in the area. And just on a really fast, serious note, Jack, I want to offer condolences on the passing of your mother recently. She was a great pioneer, great name, great historic name in California and in Napa. But we want to talk to you a little bit today about what drew you up to Washington from California, what vision you saw there, and tell us a little bit about, again, we've been talking about sub-appellations, so we want to hear a little bit about Royal Slope and that name, Mullan Road. So take it away, Jack. Welcome.
Well, so I'm Dennis.
Dennis, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Jack is your father. I don't know where that came in there. Hi, Dennis.
Well, he's been around a long time, so that's thanks so much. Thanks for your condolences on his wife and my mother passing away. You know, she was 90 years. She just celebrated her 90th birthday, her 70th anniversary, and she died peacefully in her sleep. So I think that's a good. You know, she enjoyed every day and thought very fortunate for the life that she lived. Anyway, we miss her. I'll be sad. I'm gonna hopefully share my screen.
Great.
And start. How's that looking?
It's not.
It's not. Let's try this again. No. Oh, I'm sharing. Did I get the sharing back from Heidi?
Heidi, yeah, Heidi's given up. He's yielded.
Okay. Oh,
There you go. Dennis Cakebread is sharing. You got it.
Right. Thanks so much. Who knew we had to learn all this stuff? So Mullan Road is up in eastern Washington. I didn't mean to do that. Forward to there. How's that? Okay. So I'm Dennis Cakebread. Cakebread Cellars. We've been doing this for 47 years at our home in Napa. Back in the early 90s, we had known that we were going to get to a size where we didn't want to grow Cakebread Cellars anymore. And we developed a plan. It was my white paper to go find some place. And of course, it just takes longer to get started on all this. We're very busy at Cake Bread, growing that and trying to fulfill our dreams with that. And so it wasn't, actually I started on this in 2005, but then of course the Great Recession hit. It came out of that healthy. And so in 2010, I started looking even more seriously. And in 2012, found some land, found some people to help, and started out. Our first vintage we made, it was a red blend. Aaron Morell is our winemaker. Aaron spent some time working in Napa, but he's from Seattle, and he decided to go West Young Man and kind of stake his claim up there. I'm very lucky to be working with Aaron. He makes wine for a couple other wineries, but of course this is his favorite.
Naturally.
Started talking about what to make. I was so lucky to have friends in the industry up there that were helping me. I was actually up on a tour, just driving around, looking at stuff, and started bumping into people, and everybody's so helpful. So the thing about Walla Walla reminds me of Napa 30, 40 years ago, where everybody's helpful. We're all in the same boat, so to speak, pulling the same way, trying to make the best wines that we can. And so guys like Marty Klepp from LaCole, and JF, Jean-Francois Palais from Pepper Bridge, and Gary Figgins from Leonetti have all been helpful. Norm McKibben, the serial entrepreneur from up there, have all been so helpful and introduced me to some great vineyards, some great locations, some, it's so much easier when you have friends helping you. What's unique about Eastern Washington is it's very dry. Everybody thinks of Washington and they think of Seattle, and they watch the Seattle Seahawks play their local team, and inevitably they pan to the crowd and show it's raining. Everybody's got their Columbia rain gear on, and there's water dripping off their nose, and everybody thinks that's what Washington is. It's not. That's west of the Cascade Mountains. East of the Cascade Mountains, they capture all the water there. And so Eastern Washington is basically a desert. And it was a desert until the Grand Coulee Dam got installed in the 50s. And it irrigates all of Eastern Washington. Without that, it doesn't exist. That dam and that irrigation project was amazing. It altered a number of industries, including apples, Sebastopol, Healdsburg, all that used to be all about apple growing. But when Eastern Washington kicked in, because there's so much sunshine up there and very little rain, but there's lots of water because of the Grand Coulee Dam, everything can grow. So they grow apples and cherries and corn and all sorts of row crops. It's an agricultural wonderland. I don't think anybody would dam the Columbia River today, but in the 1950s, that's what they did, and that's what supports all the rest of this. I should spend a little bit of time talking about why we named it Mullan Road. So back in the 1860s, Lieutenant John Mullan got commissioned to go survey and then build the first wagon road to cross the Continental Divide. He had 200 men, and in 18 months of construction time, they built this 200-mile long road. And I don't know about you guys, but in California, nothing happens in 18 months. And 600-mile long road from Fort Benton, Montana, across the Continental Divide over to Fort Walla Walla, which was at the top of the Columbia River. That's stunning. And so that's why I named it after that, because I thought that was a huge accomplishment. Turns out Mullan Road is in the historical registry of amazing places. Most of it is covered up by modern day highways, but it still exists. And so on our label, I'll show it labeled later. We have a sketch that renders that. One of the things, exciting things that just happened to us this year was in September, we got our new AVA established. And so it's called Royal Slope. And it's just south of the Ancient Lakes and just north of the Wahluke Slope. It's named after Royal City, or the other rumor is there's two Scotsmen that were sitting up there, I imagine, drinking one day, and they looked over at the slope and say, isn't that just royal? So that's I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a good story. What makes the Royal Slope, we think, special, and so a little bit you have to see the bigger picture up there. And so, most of Eastern Washington was formed by the Great Missoula floods back in ancient times. I don't have a year, it was ancient times. And so a huge lake would form near Missoula, Montana, and it would have an ice dam. And every 100 years or so, I guess this ice dam would break and it would roar west. And so if you've ever driven from Portland up to Tri-Cities, Pasco, there's the most beautiful gorge where the Columbia River flows through. And that's what created that. It also created all the soils going east from basically a little bit north of Portland. And so it's all glacial materials that were washed down there. And so our soils up on the Royal Slope, and for most of Eastern Washington, are all these fine sandy loam soils. There's a couple of different types. Sometimes as you're driving around, you'll see huge collections of boulders or round bowling ball sized rocks. And that's all because it all washed down, and it just depends where in the eddy of this huge amount of water those boulders would drop out, or that fine sandy loam would drop out.
I got it. Now it's time to give you your 2-minute warning. Sorry.
No problem. The fun part is our soils and our lack of rainfall, 8 inches on average, supplemented by all the irrigation that we've got there. We're pulling from 2 vineyards up there, 2 great vineyards, one called Solaxin. That's one of the few vineyards in Washington that's off axis, lined up on the sun. And then Stillwater Creek, that was initially planted by Mike Janik, who's famous up in the Washington area. Our wine is a red blend, and we're moving it more towards Cabernet. So you'll see it switch over to Cabernet. It's still labeled Columbia Valley because we just got approval in September. And so we'll rotate towards the Royal Slope AVA also. We welcome you to come up to Walla Walla, which is where the winery is. There's nothing out in the Royal City or the Royal Slope other than one good Mexican restaurant, but that's about it. With that, come visit us. Come visit us on our website. And Lars, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Very cool. Love to travel that Mullan Road. Beautiful, deep color in this wine.
Thank you.
Wow. Delicious. Again, nice herbiness to it. So now we're going to go back to California. And again, speaking about another classic name, and Dennis, again, I apologize. If I had a nickel for every time I was called by my father's name or my brother's name, but I always took it as a compliment. So thank you for your understanding on that. But speaking of great California families, we're going to go to Wente. And Ali Wente is 5th generation wine grower and marketing director of the famous winery in Livermore Valley. And I'd like to ask Ali to talk to us about the valley. I know it's a little bit warmer climate. How does it influence the winemaking there? And you're showing a wine from the Wetmore Vineyard. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how it got its name and what it brings to this Cabernet. Hello, Ali.
Hi, well, thank you, Lars, and hello to everybody. I think I might be the only non-winemaker or viticulturist on the phone right now, so I'm coming to you from the other side of the business. But it's a pleasure to be here this morning, and let me just see if I can share my screen. Great. All righty, and I will also just get this in presentation mode. Okay, great. So today, yeah, I'm talking to you guys about something that's a little bit different for us. I think typically most people know Wente Vineyards for our Chardonnay, because we have quite the story there, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about our Cabernet. Ooh, my background doesn't love me. So there you go. So this is our Wetmore Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon that we'll be tasting later in the presentation. I would be remiss if I didn't just touch a little bit on my family's history and who we are. We have been growing and making wine in the Livermore Valley since 1883. So for 137 years, we made wine through Prohibition for the church. So we've never skipped a vintage this whole time, which is pretty incredible. And it was all started by my great-great-grandfather who immigrated over from Germany, wound up in Napa, working for another gentleman who could speak German by the name of Charles Krug. Really learned everything from Charles Krug about winemaking. He was not a winemaker before he wound up in California, had an opportunity to move to the Livermore Valley and start something of his own. And, you know, that's how the story went. And we've been there ever since. Today, the company is run by the 4th and 5th generations. Carolyn Wente, 4th generation, is our CEO right now. She's my aunt. And it's truly a family business. I get to work alongside my cousins, aunt, sisters. Sometimes my dad shows up to a meeting. So it's pretty funny, but it's a lot of fun, and we take a lot of pride and passion in what we do. So a little bit about the Livermore Valley to kind of address some of those questions that Lars was just asking me is, yeah, I think typically people think that Livermore is a little bit more inland than it is and a little bit of a warmer valley, but we're really 30 miles east of the San Francisco Bay. And we have a really unique valley in California where we are west to east oriented. So rather than being a north and south facing valley, our valley opens up directly to the bay. And I think that really helps us with the temperature here in Livermore, because, you know, while we can get to being about, you know, 90 to 95 on a hottest point of our day during a hot summer month, July and August, we get these really strong bay breezes that come in around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and probably last until around 5 normally, and that brings our temperature down pretty fast. And then we definitely do see a drop in temperature in the night. So I think, you know, we could be seeing anywhere from a 40 to a 50 degree diurnal swing on a daily basis here. And we definitely do have a pretty significant marine fog influence that does come into the valley in the morning. We even have a Chardonnay called Morning Fog, because that's what makes this valley so unique and able to grow different varietals that need different temperatures to make fabulous wines, because we kind of have a little bit of everything going on here. And so I think that's something, you know, the Livermore Valley has been a winemaking region since the, you know, early 1800s. And there's about 50 wineries here today. So right now, actually down in that picture on the bottom of the screen, that's our Wetmore Vineyard. So that is the vineyard site for the Cabernet we're drinking. This is just a picture of our different vineyards that we have in Livermore. So the Wetmore Vineyard is number 2 right there. You can see it is a bigger vineyard, and it kind of spans alongside. If you've ever been to our golf course or our tasting lounge, formerly our restaurant, or concerts, this vineyard kind of wraps alongside of all of that. So you get different soil types, different climate influences, but generally the Wetmore Vineyard is in the southwest corner of the Livermore Valley AVA. And so in that corner, it's a cooler microclimate. And on average, it's about 2 degrees cooler than the rest of the vineyards in the Livermore Valley that you're looking at right now. We have about 13 different vineyards. And on average, we're farming about 1,500 to 2,000 acres of vineyards in Livermore. All of our wines that are under the Wente Vineyards label are estate grown. So we manage the vineyard from the moment we plant them in the ground to it ending up in your glass. And then this is, of course, a single vineyard expression of that. So we're very proud. I think my family has always said that we're farmers first, and believe that taking care of the land will take care of us as a business. So let's see. Okay, so here is the Wetmore Vineyard, and I don't know if your video, because mine just was, but my little video panel of everybody was over the right side, and I actually have a little picture, so if you want to move it, if it is blocking it. But I took a handful of dirt for you guys, which is not my typical thing because I'm a marketer. Okay, I don't normally play in the dirt. I normally leave that to my sister who manages our vineyards. But I wanted to show you, this is the soil type that we have. So really gravelly soils in the Wetmore Vineyard. On the hillside, it becomes a little thicker, more sandy gravel loam soils will hold the roots tight into the side of the mountainside. But these rocky soils do provide us amazing drainage. It provides for, that concentrated flavor. And also because it is a slightly cooler climate where we are growing this specific wine, it has a longer growing season. So it's usually one of the very last that we're harvesting in the Livermore Valley, which allows us to have, a longer time for those berries to produce that concentration, richness of flavor. And then added with that vine stress, we think, it's producing a really strong sense of place, which is one of the reasons that we wanted to bottle a Wetmore Cabernet Sauvignon. And then another reason, and you'll find this a lot with us Wentes, is we are history buffs. So if I have any other history buffs out there, but that happens when you have been making wine for such a long time. You've seen a lot of things. But we named this vineyard after Charles Wetmore. And Charles Wetmore was the first agricultural commissioner for the state of California and really an early winemaking pioneer. He was, some of the first to visit Bordeaux and bring back cuttings to the Livermore Valley. And actually in 1889, his Livermore Valley dry white wine won the Paris Grand Prix International Exposition and really put Livermore, California on the map in the early 1800s. We don't normally even talk about that. It was so early. But at that time, he had a winery. I think he founded it in 1881 called Cresta Blanca Winery. And he was really focused on producing high quality wines. My, ancestors were really close friends with him. Ultimately, we ended up buying his property. And today, this vineyard, we're growing some of his cuttings, which were clone 7 and 8, now Concannon clones, but he was the original one who brought those cuttings. We're on his property. We have his old historic winery is where you would visit us if you came today. And we're growing those original clones in our vineyard along with others, but it really comes full circle and we really appreciate that historical context. So I know I got my 2-minute warning, so I'm going to speed up. We take sustainability really seriously. We're certified sustainable vineyards and winery. I thought this was an awesome picture just to show. Her name is Jana, our falconer, and we have these amazing falcons, and she's there from sunrise to sunset. And her falcons press all the owl boxes we have on property, took our grape loss from 20% to 2%. So really focused on doing well for the earth. And I certainly want to make sure that we talk about our Cabernet here. It's a blend. So it's 77% Cabernet. We have Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot, and Malbec in there, all grown in Wetmore Vineyard. Sometimes we like to ferment on each varietal separately. Sometimes we ferment them together and we make those decisions in the vineyard. So we'll be walking through tasting. And if the winemaking team thinks that something's tasting really good together or they want some better color extraction, they make those choices in the vineyard, mix them up in the hopper, and it starts from there. Everything goes through new French oak. And ultimately, we're really guided by our winemaking principles, which is we want it to taste like a cab. If it's cab, it should taste like a really good cab. We want it to have a sense of place. And I think you get that through some of these like earthiness, dried tea leaves. We also think this has a little bit of what we call the Livermore dust. It has a little bit of that dustiness in a great way. We aim for elegance and balance. That's why we don't use all new oak on this, because we want it to be really integrated. We don't want anything to be poking out at you. And then ultimately, the last one is that we want it to be yummy. And that is so, it's the purest thing, but you know, it should taste good and you should want more of it. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Well done. The wine's got beautiful. If part of the definition of yummy means that the wine has great structure, that definitely fits the bill. The wine has beautiful structure. I think the other components in there really complement the Cabernet and make it a great wine. And like many of your wines and many of the wines on this panel today, great value as well. Thanks, Allie. I'm going to ask you to take down your share screen so we can turn to Round Pond and Miles McDonald. Miles, I know that you're sitting on a family property. You grew up there, tried to pursue something else, went into accounting a little bit, but then found the passion, saw the light, came back to the land and developed it from vineyards into a winery. So tell us a little bit about that, about your terroir and what you're doing there in the Rutherford AVA. But you're on mute.
Haha, there we go. Well, thanks for having me. Allie, I got to say, for the first time in my life, I now have falcon envy. I've never had that before. But anyway, I guess something to aspire to is a falconer. But let me get my presentation up, and I'll talk a little bit about Round Pond and you know, how we have come to be and why we do what we do, et cetera. Yeah, Round Pond is a family, you know, business, as you mentioned. How do I move this thing? There you go. Come on now. There it is. You know, we started in Napa Valley in the mid 70s. We were up on Pritchard Hill for a few years, and in 81 there was a fire up there that ended up scaring my parents quite a bit, because there was only one way up and down the road out there. And so we ended up moving down to Rutherford in 82. And we started with 20 acres here that we bought from Austin Hills, and we grew Cabernet that year for Gurgitch Hills, and basically we've been growing Cabernet in Rutherford ever since. You know, the property has expanded a little bit, and like you said, I like a lot of, you know, people who spend time here in their childhoods. I was given an opportunity, that's what my dad called it, to work in the vineyards when I was a teenager. And you know, as great as that opportunity was, you know, I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned is I didn't want to work in the vineyards as an adult. And so I went out and tried something else, and realized, like I said, you know, a lot of others, that really I did want to be back here. And so I came back and joined the family business in 2001. And we ended up going through our harvest that year. And, you know, the first 20 years here, other than my parents making a little bit of wine in their tractor shed, we had served, you know, been primarily growers. And so, yeah, well, see, there's mom and dad in there. So this is all their fault, really. But anyway, yeah, we had been growers for the first 20 years that we were here. And we ended up going to our largest client in early 2002 to get a better understanding, really, of what we had done well for them that year and how we could improve. And we got so little feedback, you know, throughout that meeting, that we decided the best way for us to really improve what we were doing and to help market our ranch to other wineries throughout the valley would be to start making a little bit of wine. And so we started in 2002 by making, I think, 5 different lots of Cabernet from 5 different blocks on the property, to just really begin to refine our vineyard practices. And you know, that has of course led to us building our own winery in 2007, which you see here. And you know, we've since learned a lot about our farming practices. And really for us, I think it was, that the beginning of a transition from farming, which is, I think, what we did for the first 20 years, to really wine growing, which is, I think, where we focus now. We are in Rutherford. Well, let me talk about this too. My sister would be really upset with me if I didn't talk about some of the other things that we do really quickly. But we also have about 2,200 olive trees on the property. We make a number of different olive oils from those. We make citrus syrups as well, balsamic vinegars, red wine vinegars. We have pretty extensive gardens here. Everything that we do, as you can see with the olive oil and all the food, and the wines, they're all really food and wine driven. So, we really just think about that experience that people have with all of these things, and how sitting at a table with, an amazing meal and great people, with great wine, it just, I don't know that it gets too much better than that. So that's really where we focus. But looking at Rutherford here, this is a map, sort of a zoomed in map of Rutherford. And if you move your pictures a little bit, and maybe we've gotten better at that now with Allie showing us the way. If you move the picture on the right, you'll see a little bit about Round Pond and where we are, and in Rutherford and relative to other wineries here. And Rutherford is the widest spot in Napa Valley, and so that means it gets the most sun exposure throughout the day. It is widely considered to be Cabernet country here, and so that is primarily what we have in our vineyards. We also have a fair amount of Sauvignon Blanc. We've got some other Bordeaux varietals as well, but primarily what we do around here is Cabernet. And when we start looking at our vineyards, it all starts with the land and the soil types that we've got. And for better or worse here, our property is almost like a marble cake of various soil types. So we have a lot of very gravelly areas, some Cortina, very gravelly loams. And then as we move over to the western side of the property, you'll find heavier soils, more clay-based soils. And so that's where we'll plant some of our Sauvignon Blanc over there. We've also had Merlot there in the past, but right now we are shifting most of the western side, that heavier soil, to our Sauvignon Blanc that we think does really, really well there. You can see here some of our neighbors. We've got Beckstoffer's George III Vineyard there. They're really sort of prized wines that comes off of this ranch. Sort of starts in this little section here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's this beautiful soil finger that kind of runs all the way right down through here. And so one of the wines that we're tasting today, or that you guys may have today, comes from a big chunk right down here. Really does take advantage of that same soil profile. So then, let's see, moving on, talking about our vineyard practices. All of our vineyards are farmed and certified as sustainable. So, we live here, we've got little kids running around the vineyard. I don't want to do anything to make them any stranger than they already are. So we do try to really be mindful about what we do out in the vineyard. And as I said, everything is certified as sustainable. So we'll do things like, bird boxes, owl boxes to help control some of the insect population. We will use various cover crops as biofumigants to try and, control some of the nematode issues that we may have. We've experimented over the years with organic farming and with biodynamic farming, both of which have, a lot of great things about them. But I think what we consistently come back to is that we like to have, some arrows in our quiver in case we need them. And so sustainability really allows that to happen for us. And, we use a lot of things that are so gentle. We'll use pheromone sticks, for example, to disrupt mating cycles. You're going out and tying little twisty ties out on the vine. So we're not doing a lot of stuff and that we're not proud of. And like I said, we really do want to improve, you know, the land for future generations. And right now, I'm really excited about, you know, we're looking towards moving in a no-till farming direction, which I'm pretty excited about. And hopefully over the next few years, we'll have more to say about that. But I think that will be exciting for us. Again, more about the soil here. So, you know, as I said, the eastern side, you see those on the right side of your screen there, you're going to see that sort of pile of gravel. And that's what we've got mostly up and down the eastern side of the property. And as we move west, you'll see that heavier soil. One of the fun things for me, we've seen some pretty cool pictures today on some of these awesome presentations. You've seen those under vine shots, and we've got some of these blocks where if you go and you'll see our drip irrigation underneath the emitters, you see almost this little, you know, this little pit that develops right where the water hits, this little dimple in the ground. And you know you've got a lot of gravel in the soil when the gravel starts to sort of filter up into this little spot there. And it's that happens a lot to us on the eastern side. And there's one block in particular that I think of as almost a gravel pit that has so much gravel in it that it just really, you know, forms these really cool mounds underneath the water emitters. And those
Sorry, Mark,
provide
we got about a minute to take it home. Sorry.
a minute. Jeez. Okay. But they provide some,
get in on the 2-minute mark.
some really great, you know, intense wines from those more gravelly sites. This is our winemaker, John Wilson, just a fantastic guy. He's been with us for a couple of years, and he works with this fellow, Thomas Rivers Brown. Together, they're a great team. They really, you know, follow a non-interventionist, you know, philosophy where we let the wines really showcase what the site and vintage bring to the property. And this is the wine that you guys have today. It is 100% cab, you know, just a you know, really beautiful expression of 2017. It's got a lot of depth and nuance to it. It gets a little bit of French oak, new French oak, to try and really highlight, I think, what our property does. I'm trying to hurry here, so there you go.
Cool. Really fast on the name.
Beauvais. So Louis Beauvais. Beauvais is my mother's maiden name. Louis is my great grandfather, and so that's where the name comes from.
Well, it's got an old world look, and I have to say, it's got old world structure. The wine's got beautiful acidity, balance, great food wine. Very nice.
Absolutely.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask you to take down your.
No, I won't do it. I want more time. Okay.
Thank you. This is the hardest part of being a moderator, is having to cut off all these great voices and wonderful facts. But we've got so much good stuff and so little time. So we're going to go to Damien Grinley at Brecken Estate in Paso. Damien, you're a world. We talked about terroir before. I don't know where you consider your terroir. You're a Welshman. You've worked in California, Southern Italy, South Africa, Australia, all sorts of facets of the wine business, from label making, winemaking, for a lot of other people. And you're no longer stealth. You purchased your own property, 40 acres, so you could make unfettered wines with your name on them. So tell us about your approach to that, please.
Yeah, sure. Let me just start sharing my screen. Obviously, I've got a bit of a strange accent as well, but we will go with it. All right.
There we go.
Right, so that's me. If you haven't seen a photograph of me already, let's move on a slide. And the reason I was traveling the world is before I was a winemaker, I was actually one of those, strange cave explorers. So we need to go back. What? Hang on a minute. There's some reason it's on automatic. So I would travel the world doing the longest and deepest cave. This is one of the recent expeditions I was on to the Philippines, the first descent of Langbasan Cave. And so I'm really conflicted here with this link up with Nat Geo. I feel I should be talking about caves and limestones and marbles and not about wine, but actually with Brecon Estate, it all ties in together. So, you know, for those who don't know, and I'm having obviously screen issues, let me just move through them. Let me go to the next one. Paso Robles is halfway between LA and San Francisco. And it is a rather large appellation, I think the second biggest in California, but it is split now into these 11 or 12 different sub-appellations. And again, like a common theme we've heard today, we've got in California the influence of the Pacific Ocean here. And it is rather key, but the thing that makes our story and Paso's story is different is really the calcareous soil. So I'm only going to skip over all the ocean influences. But if we look at this map, one of the great things about this map is you've got that Santa Lucia mountain range going through there. And it's not that high, it's only a couple of thousand feet or 2,500 feet, but it's like a dam to that fog, and it holds back the fog that's sucked in on the hotter days. So the fog will actually sit on the top of that ridge. And if you're behind the ridge, it's like standing somewhere with the refrigerator door open. You're not necessarily in the fog, but you get the cool ocean influences. Now, the Santa Lucia range is actually, it's got lots of gaps in it. So there are places where the fog comes through, and they're like tongues of fog that come through and cool my British blood down at night so I can handle the heat of California and the Paso. And it's the same thing for the grapes. The grapes have this diurnal range. So we have a 50-degree swing here between day and the morning fogs. And it's really like going back to a nice air-conditioned, cool house at the end of the day. You kind of reset yourself for the next day. And it gives us a lot longer hang time than we normally would. So if I just squeeze onto the next slide, we're right in front of this ridge, and these fogs sit on the ridges. And again, this is this refrigerator door analogy. You don't need to be in the fog to actually be cooled. It has this the cool air streams down and cools our blood, cools the vines, cools everything else, and stretches out our growing season. Now, if you remember that map, you've got the Pacific Ocean on the left here. And you can see this is really the start of the Paso Robles appellation. And where my cursor is, you'll see a string of wineries sort of paralleling the ocean. And a lot of that is because that's as close as you can get to the ocean while still being on the calcareous soil. And the calcareous soil, limestone is the calcareous soil, marble's the calcareous soil, that's the caver in me talking. Brecon Estate, by the way, is right in the center here. It is key to this story. In that Santa Lucia range, there is a band of calcareous soil, calcium-based soil, that runs up in Monterey. It's about 100 feet wide, and it's really steep, and you couldn't plant it. But by the time you get to Paso, it's about 6 miles wide. And it really pretty much ends just inside that Santa Lucia range. So you're in the rain shadow, you're getting the influence of the fog, but you're still on the calcareous soil. Now, when I was a caver and I was wandering around the world, exploring all these caves, I obviously taste the local wines, and I really get this great link and start to understand the link between the calcium-based soils and wine. And that's why when we were hunting to buy a winery back in 2008, or a property, we were looking on these calcareous soils. And if you think back in history, a lot of the classic wine regions are on a calcareous-based soil. San Emilion, Côte d'Or, half of Italy, Cunawara, the list goes on and on. And why is that? Well, firstly, it's like chalk and limestone, a very freely draining soil. So there's no surface water, a lot less chance for molds. So the wines were less prone to disease pressure. The second thing you've got with a calcareous soil is the wines have a lot brighter acids or lower pHs. And this is a factor to do with the potassium uptake on a calcareous soil. Now, what's that mean? Well, wines with a lower pH are much more microbially stable and unlikely to spoil. So back in the days pre-refrigeration, pre-electricity, pre a lot of the modern winemaking tools that we have, this was particularly important. And then the other advantage of having a lower pH is better colors and ageability. So in these classic regions, this is why these calcareous-based soils were so important. And it's an interesting question whether, because so many of these regions were based on a calcareous soil, whether our palate that the humans have developed is linked to this sort of type of wine, because that's where traditionally they would grow wines that would not spoil, be microbially stable, and age well. So again, Brecon Estate here is as close as we can get to this, to the Pacific Ocean, while still being on this calcareous soil. And we've heard rainfall in these other regions as well. Paso's rainfall all really comes in the winter. So really from the first or second week of November through to March. Now, this is Paso Robles, the town of Paso Robles, and they get an average of 10 to 12 inches a year. Where we are, which is about 4 to 5 miles closer to the ocean, we get about 22 to 23 inches a year. Literally on the next ridge over, my screen's reversed, so I'm pointing the wrong way. They'll get 35 inches, and if you're down on the coast, you'll get 65 inches. So even though the Santa Lucia range is only 2,000 to 3,000 feet in elevation, there is a rain shadow here, and it's also really important. But here is what we're talking about, these calcareous soils. And for those who know, this one is a little bit like soil. It's actually a calcareous shale. So the cal of calcareous is calcium. And it's a little bit in places like a Hollywood rock. You can pick this thing up and throw it over your shoulder, a big slab of it. It is really quite light. In some places, it has recrystallized, it's a little harder. And you can see on the top of this soil here, a very thin layer. The wine we're tasting today, the Cab Franc, is planted on the top of a hill. So it only has about 6 inches of this clay on top. And that's unusual because, around here, they usually reserve the hilltops for Cabernet Sauvignon because your best return on investment is on Cabernet Sauvignon. And this is actually a clay. And clay will actually act as a cap and it will trap the water in there. So a lot of the vineyards around here, even though they have 6 inches of soil on top, and the vines have to fight their way through this rock, it acts as a cap over the top to trap the water in. So what I've tried to do here is sum everything I've talked about in one photograph. This is the top of the vineyard. You've got the Cabernet Sauvignon grapes right in front of us. You've got the rest of Brecon Estate vineyard rolling away. We haven't talked about microclimates, but there's a lot of microclimates in Paso. And then you start seeing the start of the Santa Lucia highlands rolling up here with the fog sitting on top of it. So, this is very much talking about the terroir and where we are right now. So this is our label. I do have a bottle in front of us. I think if I wave it, there we go. It's an older vine Cabernet Franc. It's 40 years old now. It doesn't blend well with a lot of the younger climates, so we bottle it by itself. There is a small amount of Cabernet Sauvignon here, again from the Brecon Estate, which is a 50-year-old vine. Because of that long hang time, you get past a lot of the pyrazine flavors you traditionally associate, the greenness and the leafiness of the Cabernet Franc, and you get more into a truly ripe character, and you get past a lot of the drying tannins. So that's pretty much about Brecon Estate. We're 40 acres, we're small, boutique, but we're very much focused on elucidating what we can get out of these calcareous soils.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. All right, I'm going to ask you unshare your screen and mute because I think I'm getting an echo from your area there. Great.
I'm just trying to do that now.
Up at the top.
No. Stop. There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, thank you, everybody. This was great. A lot of wonderful information, a lot of beautiful wines. As I said, all great values, great names, great terroirs, great explanations. I really want to thank each of the winemakers or wine representatives, Sally, so for diving in, making a deep dive into their terroirs, making a great case for the terroir that makes America truly wonderful wine country. I'm going to only throw out one question, and we're going to go around the horn. I'm a New Yorker, so when we used to be able to travel in elevators, we used to say we have the elevator pitch. So I'm going to give each of you a 20-second opportunity to tell us 2020. My goodness, we all had a very different 2020 vision not long ago. And we know that we've all had the magic word pivot. We've had to deal with everything that's going on, and it's not stopping yet, all the challenges, but you face different challenges in your tasting rooms and in your harvest. And it wasn't just limited to COVID. There were the fires, there was so much going on. So in a nutshell, 20 minutes, what is your short-term, but really more so long-term vision for vintage 2020? And let's start with Sarah. Clock is running.
Sorry. I think, yes, I agree. 2020 was a very difficult vintage as a whole. But we at Foley Family Wines, it comes down to our quality and our standard, and nothing, we will assess everything. We will take our time to taste and go through everything. It's going to be we will make a lot less wine, but we will, the standard of quality will be there. We will not put anything in the bottle that is of, not going to meet the quality.
We got to get something good out of 2020.
Yeah.
All right. Guillaume, you're up.
Oui, this is not a scoop that 2020 is a challenging year. However, this is a beautiful vintage, if we don't think about the smoke of the fire. Good season, small yield, a lot of concentration. So I am always optimistic, but for the moment, I think this vintage will be interesting. I don't know yet how the smoke will impact the wine. For the moment, I don't smell a lot of impact here in Yamhill Carlton. So we need the time. We need the time to age the wine and to see what happened. But voilà, it's an experience, Yeah.
Life is an experiment these days. All right, Wayne.
Yes, I love the 2020 vintage as it looks right now. It reminds me a lot of 2005, which was one of my favorite vintages of the Willamette Valley. And it was a cooler year. We didn't have any hot spikes. And so everything was pretty even going through. We were not impacted by the smoke. We're, again, because of our location farther west and south, we were fortunately not close to any of the fires. So we really didn't have any smoke incidents. And everything going through fermentation right now looks really good and clean. So I'm very optimistic about that. I love the balance, the elegance, and look forward to trying it in 5 years.
Amen. Me too. I can't wait to be 5 years away from this year. One last bonus question for you, Wayne. Is that coffee in your cup?
It is.
All right. I'm not so sure I believe you, but okay. Heidi?
Okay, 2020. I almost, I'm scared to say it's been a challenging year because I'm afraid of what's coming. I mean, we still have a couple months of this left, but we'll see. 2020 was looking to be an amazing vintage, and then the fire started. So the interesting thing is there's so many things to learn about it. We harvested all of our fruit, and our CEO and the president of Mary Edwards Winery told me, Heidi, make the best wine you can. And if it turns out that there's something wrong with smoke taint, then we won't put it in the bottle. They're not going to make me put anything in the bottle that would somehow not be what you would expect to get from Mary Edwards Winery. So whatever we make, it'll probably be less than what we've made in the past, but whatever you're going to find in the glass is going to be beautiful and what you would expect from Mary Edwards Winery, as always.
Fantastic. And Dennis, I'm going to give you 1/2 a second more so you can speak not only about Washington, but also California.
Well, so in Washington, we're still harvesting. We're not done yet. And so we should be done before we go trick-or-treating is our goal. It's a nice vintage. You know, we farm for pretty low yields, but it could be that nature has given us even lower yields than that. But so far so good, but we're still midpoint. Down in Napa, you know, we were lucky that we had picked a lot of it before the second set of fires. You know, we had the lightning fires that came in August, and then we had more fires at the end of September and October. So most of that, I think, is going to be impacted. So we expect our production to go down quite a bit, but we're hopeful. Everything that got picked before, I think we're going to be in fine shape, and that should hopefully carry us through. So just a question, I don't know about you, you know, and we're concerned about the next disaster. I don't know if it's going to be earthquakes or alien invasion. So I'm 50-50. I don't know which one. Thanks, Lars, for having me.
Thank you, Dennis. Ali?
Yeah, you know, I think just to echo what everybody else said, probably we're going to have lower volumes this year. I think ultimately up until, you know, the fires, it was a really great growing season. So we still have a lot of hope for the vintage and have a really positive outlook. And, you know, I will say, because I am on the other side of the business, I think 2020, you know, challenged us in the ways that we thought about our business and the way that we've done things. And it kind of, you know, it brought a lot of innovation and new ways of thinking. So for better or for worse, I think that there are highlights to this year.
Amen. One way or the other. Miles?
Yeah, just to, you know, kind of follow up on what everyone's saying, you know, prior to the glass fire here, everything we brought in looks really, really good. You know, our Sauvignon Blanc looks excellent. We have a Chardonnay for the first time, which is looking fantastic. Even the reds that we brought in prior to the glass fire look really, really good. So it was just a beautiful growing season. And we are evaluating those reds, of course, for any smoke influence. And you know, we're going to be really critical of anything that we think doesn't stand up to where we need it to be. The stuff that, you know, we brought in post glass is really going to be more education for us than anything else. I mean, you could see the smoke in those fermentations, and you know it's there. So those, sadly, will be wines that you guys will never see. But you know, they're going to be for us to learn, you know, more about what we can do. But everything pre-glass fire, I think we're really excited about and optimistic about, and we'll see. It was a great year right up until then.
Okay. Damien, you want to bring it home?
Yeah, so going into 2020, or once COVID had hit, the one thing we wanted out of 2020 was a great vintage. So in 10 years' time, we could sit down with a bottle of vintage 2020 and reminisce or what have you. And almost embarrassingly, we seem to have got that in Paso, because all the smoke just happened to drift past on the other side of the Santa Lucia Ranges. We hardly got any smoky days. You're pretty safe buying a bottle of 2020 Paso wine. We've only just started picking this week, and we've still got another 3 weeks to go. We actually ironically needed some of that heat from the heat spikes because it was such a late spring. So we actually really needed it to push the grapes through so that we weren't up against the frost and the rains that come in November. So for us, we've got some wonderful things in tank, and nothing's tested with any smoke taint compounds at all. So we're almost embarrassed to say in this mix that it's looking like a damn good vintage for Paso.
Good. We need it. Well, I think that in a few years from now, when we enjoy the 2020, and I think it's going to be a good one all around because of selection and all the other, all the standards that everybody here is going to keep. You know, in the circles where people make fun of wine folks, they say, oh, that we raise our pinky when we're raising our wine glass. Well, when I'm drinking 2000, I'm going to be raising another digit, and you know which one it is. But here's the deal. We're all going to have to toast ourselves to making through this great, this incredible challenge that was 2020. So I want to thank again, everybody that's here. Meredith, I want to thank you for putting on this wonderful educational series, our friends at SOMM, our friends at National Geographic, and reminder to the first 5 people that can get in an essay now that all the reports are in. If you can recap that well, send it to me at lars@sommjournal.com, LARS@sommjournal.com. And we'll be giving out 5 copies of this incredible tome. So thank you all very much. Appreciate your time, and God bless. Stay well, stay healthy, and good evening. Good afternoon. Bye now.
Just enough battery power in that thing.